In this manhwa, we explore the world of gods, known as the supreme beings. These powerful entities have been creating countless universes since ancient times, endlessly chasing eternal life. In their pursuit, they brought forth souls, laws of the universe, and various substances. However, some of these supreme beings grew bored and entertained themselves by watching their creations engage in endless wars. To them, the chaos and destruction were fascinating. The creations had to fight, die, and be reborn continuously, all for the amusement of the supreme beings. However, everything changed when one of these supreme beings was killed by one of his own creations. This unprecedented event caught the attention of supreme beings from other dimensions. They gathered to observe the world that had lost its master, intrigued by the death of their peer at the hands of a mere creation. Though they weren't particularly mournful, they saw an opportunity. The first to claim this ownerless power would become its new master. The story begins in a high school classroom with Suho proudly telling his friends about his acceptance into the prestigious Korea National University of Arts. His friends are shocked, struggling to believe it. As Suho enjoys the moment, one friend tears up over having to repeat a year, and another is bewildered at Suho's success despite his mediocre skills. The mood shifts when a familiar, unpleasant voice sarcastically congratulates Suho. It's the school bully, Sungchul, who Suho mockingly addresses with a random name, infuriating Sungchul. Sungchul accuses Suho of ruining his plans to take over the school, but Suho retorts that he actually helped Sungchul graduate. The other students are frustrated, seeing Sungchul still acting like a bully just before graduation, especially targeting a kid who lost his parents but remains strong. As Sungchul's patience wears thin and he's about to punch Suho, Suho quickly counters with a knee to Sungchul's face. Though his knee breaks Sungchul's nose, the bully remains unfazed, his fist igniting with a strange energy. With a devilish look, Sungchul swings a powerful punch at Suho, who barely dodges, causing the punch to dent nearby lockers. The class is bewildered, and even Sungchul is confused by his newfound power, leaving Suho unsure of how to handle the situation. 2 years later, Suho is a second-year university student. Walking across campus, he notices a commotion. Workers are surrounding a mysterious portal, and an instructor announces that classes in the main building are moved due to hunters dealing with monsters coming through the portal. A suited man asks a worker how long the hunters have been inside, to which the worker replies just over 8 hours. Since the gate is rated D rank, there's a good chance the hunters will be out soon. Suho stands quietly while the announcement blares, and students chatter about whether the school might get destroyed. Some reassure each other that the hunters will handle it. Suho isn't too freaked out. Gates showing up isn't that unusual. 3 years ago, these portals called gates started appearing everywhere, and the world changed. Gates are shortcuts to dungeons, and once opened, monsters spill out and cause chaos. But people started developing special abilities too, becoming the awakened, who could use mana and had all sorts of cool powers. The world was in chaos until an awakened named Jinchul formed the Hunter Association. He gathered other awakened and created the job of hunters. Thanks to them, the chaos was controlled faster than expected. Now people are split into awakened and non-awakened. Non-awakened folks have to work hard to make a name for themselves, while the awakened can easily get what they want. Non-awakened people realize they wouldn't survive without the awakened, but the awakened could manage without them. Everyone is grateful to the hunters, allowing non-awakened people like Suho to live relatively peaceful lives. Yet Suho feels uneasy and insecure, reflecting on the loss of his parents and his dependence on others. He once believed he could achieve anything, but now that confidence has faded, leaving him feeling powerless. He remembers his mother's voice saying he resembles his father and wonders how his father would handle this helplessness. Suddenly, Suho is jolted by what sounds like his father calling him. Snapping out of his thoughts, he sees his teacher behind him, complimenting his impressive drawing. Suho shrugs, saying he drew it based on his feelings. The teacher is intrigued by the creative drawing of an ant with a human-like stature. But Suho has no clue why he drew such a creepy thing. Outside the campus, hunters emerge from the portal, looking confident. The site worker praises Hunter Kim for his great work, and Kim reports that everything went smoothly. He mentions they've encountered a new type of monster, a humanoid creature that spits blue flames from its eyes and mouth and attacks with claws and fangs. Despite being grazed by the creature, Kim assures it's nothing serious. Hunter Kim thought he had everything under control, but he quickly realized he was wrong when his wound from the humanoid monster started to react badly. A sharp, stinging pain spread throughout his body, forcing a scream from his lips. His sword slipped from his hands, and even the site worker noticed that something was seriously wrong with Kim. Suddenly, the once muscular hunter transformed into a grotesque goblin, spewing blue flames. With terrifying speed, he lunged at the worker, tearing into his chest with a single bite, leaving a horrifying scene that sent chills down everyone's spines. The other hunters and bystanders were frozen in shock. One hunter pointed out that the blue flames were the same as those used by the monsters in the dungeon. Kim, now a terrifying creature himself, lunged at another hunter and bit off his head without hesitation. Panic erupted as people fled in all directions, desperately trying to save themselves. Unfortunately, those bitten by Kim also transformed into blue flame monsters and began attacking others, spreading chaos even further. The screams were so loud they echoed inside the building, drawing people to the windows to see what was happening. Suho looked outside and saw the chaos with people attacking each other, seemingly controlled by the blue energy. It quickly became clear to the students that these people had turned into monsters. Seeing the dungeon outbreak, the students panicked and urged their instructor to act since he was an awaken too, but the teacher quickly reminded them that he was only an E-rank hunter. Suddenly, Suho spotted a blue flame monster right above the campus floor. The creature crouched, ready to leap inside through the window where the students were gathered. Suho shouted for everyone to run. Before they could react, the monster leaped inside, knocking a student out instantly. Suho ducked to avoid it. The monster opened its mouth, spewing blue flames as it began devouring the fallen student. The gruesome sight left the other students paralyzed with fear. Suho ran for the exit, but noticed a fellow student with injured legs, unable to move. She pleaded for help, and Suho paused, torn between fear and duty. After a moment, he promised her he would get the hunters to help, knowing deep down it was a lie. Leaving her behind meant certain death, and he was painfully aware of his own limitations as a non-awakened. However, he resolved not to blame his powerlessness and told himself he needed to find a way to help. Suho wondered what his father would have done in this situation. As he imagined his father's courage, the monster finished with the fallen student and turned its attention to the injured girl. Tears streamed down her face as she faced her impending doom. The monster charged at her like a rabid animal, ready to strike. In a moment of desperation, Suho grabbed a fire extinguisher and smashed it into the monster's face. His eyes burned with determination, as if he had discovered what his father would have done, and he acted on it. As Suho's resolve ignited within him, a system notification appeared, alerting him that he had completed a secret quest titled Courage of the Weak. Let's take a trip back in time before we get into the action. Suho tells us about a dream he had long ago that felt like a game. In this dream, he had to level up and fight stronger monsters on each floor. As the monsters became more challenging, he needed to grow stronger as well. After facing many obstacles, he finally reached the top floor, where he confronted the final boss. This boss was incredibly powerful, and Suho felt a mix of envy and admiration for its strength. Oddly enough, he sensed a connection to this enemy. Later, he realized that the boss was actually his father. With this revelation, Suho understood that his dream was a reflection of his father's life, and he was experiencing a piece of it himself. Spotting a fire extinguisher nearby, Suho grabs it and rushes back into the room, landing a solid hit on the monster's face, knocking it backward. Even though he struck the monster directly, he lacks mana, making his attack ineffective against a magical beast. Unsure of what to do next, Suho is stunned to see the monster and a terrified girl frozen in place, as if time has stopped. At that moment, a system window appears, notifying him that he has completed the secret quest, Courage of the Weak, and is now eligible to become a player. The system asks if he wants to accept. Suho remembers his dream and realizes that, like his father, fighting the monster is an easy choice. He accepts, and the room fills with a bright light as he evolves into an awakened. The system announces that Suho has officially become a player, and notifications flood in, detailing current quests, rewards, and more. One notable effect is longevity, a perk that can resist diseases, poisons, and status effects, while sleeping significantly boosts his regeneration abilities. Suho's status window appears, and seeing this game-like status makes him smile. He is finally awakened. His current quest is to defeat the Mist Burr, and he'll level up if successful. With time resuming, Suho sees the monster is a D-rank awakened Mist Burr. He quickly tells the girl to run as the monster advances toward him. Two other students who were bitten have also transformed into Mist Burr monsters. As the monsters attack, Suho's eyes blaze with determination. He smashes one in the face with the fire extinguisher, but it's clear that isn't enough. So he gathers his energy, apologizes to the girl, and delivers a powerful punch. The force sends her flying into a wall, demolishing it. Suho is surprised by his strength, but he's thrilled to have defeated the monster with one hit. Another monster lunges at him, but Suho delivers a solid kick to its belly, sending it crashing down. The system announces the defeat of the unawakened Mist Burr, and Suho levels up. A new quest prompts him to defeat the remaining Mist Burrs. He soon eliminates the other unawakened Mist Burrs. With these victories, he is convinced he has awakened. He lands a devastating punch on an awakened Mist Burr, but the monster doesn't flinch. Suho grows anxious, realizing the beast is tougher than expected. The monster retaliates, slashing Suho's chest with its claws. He quickly pushes himself away from the monster, noticing his wound. He's at risk of transforming into one of these magical beasts. Just then, the system announces a harmful status effect in his spirit has been detected, but removed due to longevity. His injuries begin to heal, and he remembers his longevity skill activating. The monster lunges at him again, pinning him to the ground. It opens its foul mouth as Suho struggles to push it away. On the brink of being overpowered, Suho remembers the stat points he earned from defeating the other monsters. He quickly allocates all 3 points to his strength, giving him the boost needed to push the monster away. The monster regains its footing, but is met with a powerful punch from Suho. Despite the extra strength, Suho realizes it's still not enough. The beast continues to slash at his chest, forcing him to allocate all his remaining points to strength. His fists blaze with a fiery aura as he delivers a punch that turns the monster's face into a complete mess. Suho realizes he has found the ultimate cheat system. While most awakened have fixed ranks and can't get stronger, Suho can keep earning points and become indefinitely powerful. After relentlessly pummeling the monster's chest into oblivion, Suho gears up for one final powerful punch. He puts everything he has into it, sending the beast crashing into the wall behind it. The impact causes the wall to crumble, and the monster is shredded like a torn piece of fabric. As the beast collapses to the ground, Suho stands there, breathing heavily from the intense fight. The system promptly announces that he has defeated the D-rank awakened Mist Burr and leveled up several times. Exhausted, Suho drops to the ground, glancing at his hand with a sense of triumph. He clenches his fist, feeling a surge of newfound confidence, realizing he's finally become awakened. A smile spreads across his face as he declares he's no longer powerless and is ready to protect the people of this world and confront the looming crisis. Just as Suho feels pumped and ready for more battles, another mist beast charges at the building. With a powerful leap, it hurtles toward the top floor, targeting Suho. This new threat, wielding a giant sword, is revealed to be a C-rank awakened Mist Burr. Before Suho can react, the beast brings down its sword, causing a massive explosion that fills the air with dust, smoke, and debris. Meanwhile, emergency alarms blare throughout the city, warning of the dungeon break at Korea University of Arts and urging everyone to evacuate immediately. Back on campus, more reinforcements have arrived, but the platoon captain is feeling frustrated. People are losing their lives, and all they can do is wait for the Hunter Association to send assistance. A soldier reports that the association is still searching for a B-rank or higher hunter to deploy, which is causing the delay. Annoyed, the captain asks, "Wasn't this gate initially classified as D-rank? Why do they need a B-rank hunter to clean up this mess?" The soldier explains that the association is taking into account that hunters, including C-rank hunter Kim Jong-soo, have been infected and are attacking the campus. They believe sending a B-rank or higher hunter is necessary to handle the situation. Back inside the building, Suho watches in disbelief as the C-rank monster hunter strides toward him. He can't comprehend how this giant creature leaped from the ground floor to the top so effortlessly. This monster is far more formidable and different from those he's faced before. Not only is it higher ranked, but it's also wielding a massive weapon, leaving Suho unsure if he can take it on. The monster swings its giant sword, and Suho quickly ducks to avoid the attack. The swing is so powerful that it slices through nearby reinforced walls like they are paper, leaving Suho in awe of such raw strength. Meanwhile, the monster grins wickedly as it prepares to swing its sword again. Just as it's about to crush Suho, he kicks a fire extinguisher straight at the monster's face. The monster slices through it with its sword, causing the extinguisher to explode and fill the room with a thick haze. Taking advantage of the confusion, Suho makes a run for it, deciding to hold out until more hunters arrive. The monster remains in pursuit, but then it spots something that makes its grin grow even wider. Suho couldn't believe his eyes when he noticed the beast had stopped chasing him. Turning around, he saw the creature fixated on a group of terrified female students, huddled together on the ceiling, trembling with fear. Ignoring any possibility of hunters arriving, the monster sprang through the window, its massive sword aimed at the girls. Suho stood frozen in horror as, with one brutal swing, the monster turned the girls into a gruesome scene of blood and chaos. Anger surged through Suho, making him grit his teeth. He gathered his courage, leaped to the ceiling, and kicked the monster squarely in the back. But his attack was little more than a nuisance to the beast, which retaliated by swinging its sword, cutting into the floor below. Seeing the ground split open, Suho realized he was in serious trouble. A single hit could mean his end, and he was determined not to share the same fate as the girls. Despite the odds, he refused to let the monster run amok. Diving in with determination, he launched a flurry of punches, his speed making him a blur. The beast swung its sword wildly, but Suho dodged with agility, weaving through the chaos like a ninja on overdrive. He kept up his relentless assault, finally landing a powerful knee to the monster's filthy face. Yet the beast swiftly countered, slicing Suho across the belly and sending him flying with a brutal kick. He crashed to the ground, blood pouring from his mouth. Suho was certain his bones were shattered, and his rapidly decreasing health made it clear he was in grave danger. But with one last point of health, it seemed fate wasn't ready to let him go. Meanwhile, the beast grinned wickedly, enjoying his struggle. Despite his injuries, Suho tried to stand, blood streaming down his face. The stakes were high as the monster charged toward him. The system warned that his body was failing, and he began to collapse from exhaustion. Just as the beast's sword was about to end him, the air seemed to shatter like glass, and a dark figure emerged from the rift. In the nick of time, the shadowy entity sliced through the monster's hand, saving Suho from certain death. It was unmistakably Beru, coming to the rescue. As Suho's consciousness faded, he glimpsed the creature that had saved him, quickly realizing it was the same ant he had always known. Beru, berating himself for being late, swiftly healed Suho's injuries, erasing them as if they had never happened. The monster struggled to rise, but Beru, furious at the beast for harming his king, showed no mercy. With deadly precision, Beru obliterated the C-rank creature, making it look like child's play. Another monster appeared on the ceiling, ready to attack a young man clutching a broom, tears streaming down his face. But this monster met the same fate as the last, obliterated in seconds. Beru dispatched all the remaining monsters with ease, tearing them apart like party balloons. The remaining creatures had no idea where the attacks were coming from. Within moments, the entire campus was cleared of monsters. A bright light washed over the area as Beru collapsed to his knees, finally able to reunite with his master. But before we could witness their reunion, the scene shifted to the past, where we found a young Suho sketching ants, his artwork already showing several detailed drawings. Suddenly, Beru appears, holding a drawing and asking the young monarch if he's still sketching portraits of someone who looks like him. Beru is on the verge of tears, overwhelmed by how much his young master cherishes him. Just as the moment becomes emotional, the boy opens his eyes and realizes he's in an infirmary. But it's not just an infirmary, it's a hospital. His worried uncle is there, scolding him for ending up in such a state and insisting he needs guards because the world is too dangerous. His uncle's concerns are justified. When Suho finally wakes up, 2 days have passed since the incident, which has become a global topic due to the many casualties. The shocking part is the discovery of mist burrs, monsters capable of infecting hunters and turning them into monsters themselves. The Hunter Association decides to keep this a secret from the public, even though it happened in the city center. When the hunters arrived, they found all the mist burr monsters in the university already sliced up by an unknown force. Eyewitnesses even claimed the monsters suddenly burst and exploded. Suho turns off the TV, relieved that his awakening wasn't just a dream. Now he's an awakener who grows stronger by leveling up. However, he's curious about one thing. He remembers being cut by a C-rank mist burr. So how is he still alive? At that moment, Beru sneaks up and greets the young monarch, soon bursting into tears, overwhelmed with emotion after reuniting with his master after so long. Seeing his old friend floods Suho with childhood memories. He recalls how Beru cared for him like a loving parent, but can't understand why he didn't remember him until now. Beru wipes away his tears and explains that he crossed dimensions to find him. Suho, still confused, wonders why this dark creature was around when he was young and why Beru seems smaller now. Beru explains that crossing dimensions drained his mana, causing him to shrink. The system window labels Beru as Level 1 private grade, but Beru is frustrated, cursing the system for downgrading him from his true martial grade. Suho stretches and thanks Beru for saving his life, making the ant blush. Beru reminds him that even though he's tiny now, he's a skilled healer. He reveals that his main purpose was to release Suho's seal, but he's surprised to find Suho managed to unseal his abilities on his own. Suho asks if the seal relates to his dream. Beru confirms that while Suho might think it was just a dream, everything he experienced was real. He adds that Suho is much stronger now than when they last fought. Beru explains that the great shadow monarch, Jinwoo, Suho's father, sealed Suho's powers and memories to give him a normal life. The mention of his father hits Suho hard. He grabs Beru, demanding to know how he's connected to his dad, what he knows about him, and why his father left him. Beru stammers that Suho's father didn't abandon him. He merely went to outer space. Suho, curious, asks what outer space even means. Beru scratches his head, trying to explain. He uses his shadows to create illustrations, explaining that the great shadow monarch, Jinwoo, went to outer space to fight off invaders trying to take over the world. Suho's dad is still out there, keeping the world safe. Beru adds that Jinwoo is battling the Itarim, known as outer space gods, who send apostles to invade. Before coming to Earth, Beru claims he took down many enemies himself. He explains that the gates and monsters appearing on Earth are due to this ongoing war. Suho asks if his mom went with his dad. Beru says no. Suho reveals that his mom disappeared the same day his dad did, so he thought they might be together. Suddenly, Beru panics, realizing Miss Hyen is missing too, and mutters that the Itarim's apostles must have set a trap for her. Suho asks if these Itarim are why his parents can't come back. Beru asks if Suho wants to meet them. Suho's hand shakes with frustration and determination as he makes it clear he wants to meet them because he's been alone for so long. Beru says there's only one way. His dad might be stuck in outer space due to the war, but Suho can find and rescue his mom once he gets stronger. So Beru insists it's time to start leveling up. As soon as Beru speaks, a system window appears, revealing a quest called the Trial of the Shadow. The system explains that Suho is the son of the legendary Shadow Monarch, but his true abilities are sealed. To unlock his potential, Suho must prove himself by entering the Shadow Dungeon. The key he holds is the Shadow Dungeon key, with an unknown rarity. To activate it, he needs to insert the key into his shadow. When he presses the key against his shadow on the wall, a portal opens. Beru urges him to enter, saying it will help him unlock his rightful power. Suho pauses to think. All this talk about outer space, wars with gods, and the Shadow Monarch sounds like a myth, but if becoming stronger is the only way to meet his parents, he's ready to improve as much as possible. The scene shifts to the past, showing Suho's father instructing Beru to go to Earth and lift his son's seal because the Itarim invasion might impact Earth. He tells Beru to restore Suho's powers and memories and protect Earth. After that, Beru can handle things as he wishes. In the present, Beru decides to stay with Suho and monitor his progress. Once they step through the portal, they find themselves in a new place. Beru explains that this is the land of the dead, a place where the living need permission from the master to enter. It's known as the Shadow Dungeon. Suho initially thinks it looks more like a ruined city than a dungeon, but it feels strangely familiar. A system window appears, stating the quest is to survive in the Shadow Dungeon. The inhabitants won't accept a weak master, so Suho must survive for the next 4 hours to prove his worth. The timer starts. Suho feels a bit disappointed that surviving for 4 hours is the main task, but Beru quickly warns him to stay alert because things are about to get intense. A monster sneaks up behind Suho, but he swiftly delivers a powerful kick to its stomach. Although surprised by the sudden attack, the kick hurts the goblin but isn't enough to defeat it. Suho is curious about the goblin scout, and Beru explains that being a scout means more creatures are likely nearby. Hearing this, Suho acts fast, knowing he must deal with the creature before it calls for reinforcements. Beru advises against rushing in recklessly, but Suho charges ahead. Before the goblin can sound the alarm, Suho appears before it like a reaper, knocking the axe out of its hand and using it to take down the goblin. Once it's defeated, Suho notes that the goblin's name tag was white, indicating it was weaker than him. Stronger monsters have colored name tags. As they explore further, they spot another goblin, which quickly sounds the horn. Suho is frustrated, realizing he missed the scout. In no time, a horde of angry goblins appears, one with a yellow name tag. Seeing the group, Suho is anxious and asks Beru for help. Beru, though reluctant, explains that being far from the monarch drains his mana, so he can't afford to lose strength. If he intervenes, the experience Suho gains would decrease, affecting the dungeon clearing plan. The goblins close in, charging like wild creatures. Suho focuses, grabs the axe from the fallen goblin, and swings it with incredible speed and precision, cutting down goblins like they're being tossed into a blender. He's getting the hang of his untapped abilities, controlling things with an invisible force. The system window reveals this skill as Ruler Authority, currently level 1, and it doesn't require mana. Suho can manipulate objects without touching them. Suddenly, a goblin attempts a sneak attack with an arrow. Suho catches it mid-air, surprised by the archer goblin. Using Ruler's authority, he crafts a makeshift bow and fires the arrow back, striking the goblin with perfect accuracy. Beru watches, impressed by Suho's adaptability. He recalls Suho's childhood, resembling the beginning of a hero's journey. Even then, Suho could use Ruler authority, a power inherited from his father. It was meant to destroy, a burden in a peaceful world. But now, with the Itarim apostles invading Earth, Suho can fully unleash his destructive power and excel on the battlefield. Suho was cutting down monsters left and right, leveling up with each strike. He discovered that his ruler's authority limited him to carrying only 10 kilograms. Just as he was pondering this, a sneaky goblin took advantage and stabbed him in the back. The goblin laughed wickedly, but Suho quickly silenced it with a powerful punch that shattered its teeth and face. As more goblins started closing in, Beru, his companion, felt a flicker of fear for Suho. Suddenly, a high-ranking goblin appeared, its distinct name tag signaling it was no ordinary foe. Suho pulled the dagger from his back, losing 30 GP in the process. As soon as the dagger was out, the goblins attacked him like ravenous wolves. Despite the pain, Suho threw the dagger with lightning speed, piercing through all the goblins and striking the most powerful one dead center. Suho reveled in the thrill of the battle, feeling more alive than ever. Though his HP continued to drop as he fought, he used his ruler's authority to cut down the goblins effortlessly. The fight continued, and Suho accumulated a pile of bodies, his reckless fighting causing his HP to plummet. Yet he didn't give up. When he finally faced the high-level goblin, he attacked relentlessly, causing system notifications to flood his view as he climbed levels rapidly. When the battle ended, the ground was littered with goblin bodies. Suho finally paused to catch his breath, having survived the 4-hour mark and completed the quest. Beru applauded his young master, saying he never doubted Suho would ace this trial. A system notification arrived, offering a reward for completing the quest. Suho didn't hesitate to see what he had earned. The system showed that his reward was a runestone, which could teach him the skill shadow extraction. Beru was thrilled at the idea of Suho acquiring this new skill. Checking his injuries, Suho found he was unharmed, having gained a new skill called resilience during the fight. He realized he was acquiring skills in addition to the level-up system he had since awakening. Suho felt like a cheat character, benefiting from this leveling mechanism and the free skills. Beru explained that this leveling system was based on the one used by the monarch in a past life, designed to keep Suho safe as he grew. Beru pointed out that Suho was likely the only hunter in the world with such an advantage. Unsure if it was a compliment, Suho accepted the runestone anyway. Following the system's instructions, he absorbed the stone, learning that shadow extraction didn't require mana. Instead, it used mana from recently deceased bodies to create shadow soldiers. The failure rate increased based on the target's stats and how long they had been dead. Beru explained that this skill transformed corpses into soldiers like himself, capturing the essence of the authority that made the Shadow Monarch. Suho was uncertain if this skill was a form of necromancy. Extending his hand toward a dead goblin, the system indicated he could use shadow extraction, but he needed a command to activate it. At first, Suho found it cumbersome to come up with a command, but Beru advised him to make it direct. With this in mind, Suho told the dead goblin to arise. Suho summoned 3 normal rank shadow goblins, but their unimpressive appearance left him underwhelmed. Beru explained that freshly extracted monsters were weaker and smaller than in life. Suho noticed the extraction would only last a day, disappointing Beru, who believed the skill would be valuable later. Suho reassured Beru and suggested they leave the dungeon, feeling hungry after not eating for 2 days. Beru reminded him he could use the Shadow Dungeon key to exit any time. Having completed the quest, Suho readily left the dungeon. Back at the hospital, Suho enjoyed a satisfying meal. As he ate, Beru outlined their 3 key responsibilities. First, they needed to protect Earth from dungeon monsters, naturally leveling up Suho and making Earth safer under his protection. Second, they had to find Miss Hine, prompting Suho to ask about locating his mother. Beru assured him they would find answers while fighting monsters. Lastly, the most crucial task was restoring Beru's lost powers, as he loathed weakness. Beru explained that as an ant capable of consuming magic and intelligence, he could regain strength by absorbing magic from various entities, including a young monarch like Suho. Realizing the importance of these tasks, Suho resolved to enter the dungeon. However, there was a problem. The Hunter Association didn't allow unapproved hunters to enter dungeons, so Suho needed to evaluate his rank. Given his improved stats after awakening, he wondered about his rank. A lady informed him that his magic level was 46, classifying him as an E-rank awaken. Disappointed, Suho returned feeling hopeless. Beru explained that Suho had focused on increasing his stats, not his magic level, and the system ranked him based on magic level. Despite Beru's explanation, Suho felt disheartened, questioning how an E-rank could save the world, especially since even the Hunter Strike team didn't select E and F-rank hunters. Beru had a plan to help Suho gain experience. In the dungeons, different teams had specific roles based on their rank. The high-ranking Strike team was responsible for clearing the dungeon by battling monsters, while the collecting team handled the bodies. At the back was the mining team, which gathered resources. E-rank hunters like Suho could apply for the collecting and mining teams. Thanks to Beru's plan, Suho made it to a resource-rich dungeon, where he met his instructor, Lim, also an awakened E-rank. Suho was grateful for Lim's help in getting him the resource collector job. Instructor Lim was silent for a while before suddenly apologizing to Suho. He confessed that when monsters attacked their university classroom, he, being the only awakened one present, had fled out of fear instead of helping. Suho reassured Lim that he did the right thing, as the Hunter Association had instructed E-rank hunters to avoid fighting monsters. Lim then exclaimed that he must have mistaken Suho for someone else when he saw him fighting a C-rank monster. He couldn't believe his eyes, seeing Suho in action and surviving. Suddenly, Beru emerged from Suho's shadow, whispering about Suho's incredible abilities right in Lim's ear, which terrified him. Instructor Lim, startled by Beru's appearance, began to cry out of fear. Suho asked Beru why he had come, and Beru explained that Suho still needed his help because he was not yet strong enough. Seeing them converse, Lim told Suho he was fortunate to have the power of a summoner despite being low-ranked. Trying to escape from Beru, Lim attempted to run away, but Suho jokingly chided him for running away again, which made Lim feel sad. Though it was Suho's first time in the dungeon, he was eager to see the strike team in action. The strike team had already defeated most of the monsters and encountered some wolf-like creatures. One member noted that the creatures had magic stones inside them, so they needed to continue their search for valuable items. Another team member discovered a narrow pathway that had gone unnoticed in the dungeon and suggested to the captain that they investigate it. 3 of them went in. The place was in ruins, yet there seemed to be no monsters, and the hunters couldn't detect any threatening presence. They were puzzled about how the place had been destroyed without any signs of a monster. Then they spotted a sword embedded in the ground, appearing to be high-tier equipment. They all wanted a closer look since it could be worth a fortune. One hunter warned about possible traps around such valuable weapons, so they needed to be cautious. But Kim Yug-jun, a hunter, ignored the warning and pulled the sword, confidently stating that a skilled C-rank hunter like himself could handle any traps. As he pulled out the sword, he unknowingly awakened one of the monarchs of the fangs. Once the sword was free, there seemed to be no trap, but then Yug-jun transformed into a humanoid monster, yelling at them for coveting the Fang monarch's sword, the king of beasts among the 9 monarchs. The sword commanded the killing of all intruders in the Fang's monarch's domain and viciously slaughtered the 3 hunters who couldn't withstand its power. Meanwhile, Instructor Lim and the other resource collectors were amazed when Suho summoned 3 goblins to help with the resource collection. Lim was curious about how Suho could summon 4 entities, including a talking ghost when most could only summon 2. Suho found it odd as well that he could summon 3 goblins, noting the inconvenience of needing corpses for shadow extraction. He used goblin corpses in the shadow dungeon, where they worked tirelessly. Suho mentioned to Beru that the shadow extraction technique was useful, but Beru brushed off the compliment, stressing that their main goal was to level up, not focus on extraction. Suho talked about how the Hunter Association's rules required E-rank hunters to avoid dungeons alone. He thought there might be errors in the ranking system and intended to reassess once he gained more mana. He also reminded Beru about restoring his lost powers. Beru became excited upon hearing this, and Suho instructed him to consume mana crystals. When Instructor Lim noticed, Suho played it off, saying Beru wasn't helpful in mining and should look for crumbs. As Beru tried to consume a crumb, he sensed a strong monarch's presence. Suho wondered if it might be his father, but Beru explained that his father wasn't the only monarch. Others shared similar powers. Beru's powers would have been instantly restored if his father were nearby, but he couldn't identify the approaching beast. Suddenly, a loud noise was heard. The workers became alert, and some inquired about the attacking squad. They were stunned to see wolf monsters at the mining site. Panic ensued, and everyone began to flee, except one person who tried to stop the wolves and was knocked aside. Suho stood against the wolves, giving others time to escape. He noted their orange names, indicating a higher level, similar to the D-rank Mistburns he had fought before. He decided to fight them, hoping for backup. Instructor Lim stayed, and Suho asked for his help if things got dangerous. Suho instructed the goblins to protect Lim and pulled out goblin weapons from his inventory, surprising Lim with his weapon summoning ability. Suho moved with incredible speed, effortlessly cutting through the steel-fanged wolves. Instructor Lim watched in awe, speechless at Suho's power. Facing 2 wolves attacking at once, Suho skillfully managed the situation as one wolf clamped down on his weapon. Beru admired Suho's mastery of combat using shadow powers. As he absorbed the fallen wolf, Suho reflected on his ability to use extraction and summoning without exhausting his mana, realizing the potential to build an army by increasing his mana capacity. Deep in thought, he quickly killed one wolf by piercing its skull and then dealt with the other. Without delay, he summoned them back to life. The last goblin watched sadly, knowing it would vanish when Suho summoned another wolf after extraction. Instructor Lim was amazed at how an E-rank like Suho could control monsters so well, but Suho confidently confirmed his E-rank status. Suddenly, a quest notification appeared, instructing Suho to eliminate an enemy seeking to kill him. Suho thinks he's defeated all the wolf monsters, but then spots someone approaching in an attacking team suit. Instructor Lim warns they're not safe, But Suho feels something about the figure and pulls Lim behind him. The figure strikes at Lim, shattering his glasses. If Suho hadn't intervened, Lim would have been killed. The ground cracks from the figure's powerful sword. Suho decides to flee, puzzled by hunters turning into monsters. He notices the figure's red aura, showing its strength. Flashbacks of his father fighting a monarch flood Suho's mind. He asks Beru if this monarch is like his father. Beru says Raken is strong, but not on the same level. Fighting Raken now would be unwise for Suho. Despite this, Suho selects a weapon from his inventory. Beru is stunned at his determination. Suho explains the system ensures his safety before giving quests. If he could defeat the monster, the system would give him the quest. Suho wants to fight and increase his rank to see his parents. With his wolf monsters by his side, Suho steps into the domain, determined to kill Raken and grow stronger. Beru is amazed as Suho faces the monster, seeing a true monarch's shadow in him. He advises Suho that cutting off the monster's arm would sever its connection to the host. The beast, once a mighty hunter, is more formidable after infection. Suho orders his wolf monsters to attack the monster. They hold it off temporarily, and Suho is impressed by his ability to sustain his extractions with enough mana. While the wolf monsters fight, Beru asks if Suho knows the other powers of the Shadow Soldiers. Suho is surprised to learn they have more abilities, but Beru says Suho's weak monarch mana prevents him from seeing them. The monster mocks Suho for wielding the Shadow Monarch's power, but Beru is enraged. The beast is shocked to learn Suho is the Shadow Monarch's descendant, the monarch of Fang's biggest rival. Suho seizes the moment and throws a spear, which the monster breaks easily. He hurls multiple weapons, but the beast smashes them away. Suho then summons all the hunter's blades in the dungeon and attacks simultaneously. The monster dodges and grows angrier, breaking Suho's sword in one blow. Realizing close combat is too dangerous, Suho keeps his distance, aiming to tire out the monster. The monster taunts Suho, calling him a coward hiding behind the Shadow Monarch's abilities. Suho understands the provocation, but sticks to his plan, dodging attacks and keeping his distance. Suho recalls asking Beru about his true abilities. Beru explained that childhood restrictions were temporary, and that Suho now has his former talent back. Those dreams about clearing the tower were tests to see if Suho could handle his talent. The body enhancements were temporary, but the experiences were valuable. Beru emphasized Suho's fighting spirit and senses as his true strengths. Suho remembers his powers and wants a gauntlet. He plans to reshape his extracted shadows into his desired form. Summoning them again, he faces the monster's taunts, declaring no scheme has ever scarred him, and warning Suho to give up or face death. As the wolf monsters attack, the monster evades them and strikes Suho with his sword. However, Suho's steel-fanged wolf monster blocks the attack. This breakthrough allows Suho to reshape his shadows, forming a gauntlet for close combat. He counters the monster's strikes, dominating the fight. Impressed by Suho's ability to use shadow soldiers as weapons, the monster acknowledges his potential. Suho's increasing aura propels him to deliver powerful blows, landing a crushing punch to the monster's belly. The beast collapses, creating a dust cloud, but rises again, now more enraged. Suho calls forth all his weapons, grabbing an axe just as a frenzied monster charges at him. The monster lands a blow on Suho's back, but his gauntlet absorbs the impact. In a flash, Suho delivers a series of powerful strikes, defeating the monster and proving his incredible skills. Although he worried about the monster's rank, he never doubted his ability to win. Beru, his loyal companion, showed his support, but Suho assured him with a quiet gesture. He felt confident with his new shadow extraction ability. When Suho checks his rewards, he's excited to discover a new skill called Storm Lash and a runestone, allowing him to hit multiple enemies in one strike. Eager to test it, he looks for a suitable sword. Meanwhile, the Fang monarch feels humiliated, unable to accept losing to Suho, a descendant of the Shadow Monarch. The struggle continues, driven by human greed, as we learn about Roan's human hosts. As Suho reaches for a sword, a curse threatens to consume anyone else, but he picks it up easily. A blue aura overcomes the red one, and a system notification tells him he has acquired the Fang of Raken. Suho admires the sword and tests his new Stormlash skill, shattering distant stones. The Fang monarch is furious as his weapon fails to overpower Suho. Thanks to the spellcaster Kandiaru's blessings, Suho is immune to all status effects. Beru notices a change in Suho after gaining the shadow extraction ability, considering it far superior to other skills. Suho feels a twinge of sadness. Meanwhile, Instructor Lim regains consciousness and panics upon seeing the core of strikers before him. Suho tells him not to worry, as explanations will take time. Outside the dungeon, there is bustling activity. Suho, with a serious demeanor, has already rescued several people and heads back in to find more survivors. Instructor Lim is puzzled by Suho's strength, considering his E-rank status and summoning skills, typically seen as weak. Yet Suho's actions prove otherwise, as he saves workers and ventures deeper into the dungeon. Inside, Suho encounters wolf monsters and defeats them with his Shadow Extract concealment ability, leveling up in the process. Standing atop the pile of monsters, Beru notes that Suho's experience increases by defeating more enemies. Suddenly, Suho notices his sword's power weakening. The sword reveals that it only works for the Shadow Monarch's descendant, making Suho realize the Fang of Raken's importance. The vengeful spirit of Raken resides within the sword, and Beru comments on the dubious nature of being stronger when facing weaker foes. The sword argues that one must always pursue stronger challenges. But the truth is, Suho is still weaker than the sword's original master. Despite his efforts, Suho is defeated. Surprised to hear the sword speak, Suho proceeds into Raken's domain, finding the bodies of strikers. The sword explains its duty to protect the Fang Monarch's sanctuary by killing all intruders. A system notification tells Suho he can use shadow extraction on human corpses. Beru advises him that he can turn any corpse into a soldier. Suho considers the idea but decides against it, feeling it would be punishing them. He tells Beru that if they had to fight for him even after death, it wouldn't be fair. He asks Beru about the sanctuary and his father's role in defeating the monarchs. Beru explains that Itarim is the current enemy of the monarchs. There were 9 monarchs, including Suho's father, Sung Jinwoo, the Shadow Monarch and King of the Dead. Other monarchs included Raken, the Fang Monarch and King of Beasts, the King of Insects, the Plague Monarch, the King of Humanoids, the Iron Body Monarch, the King of Demons, the White Flame Monarch, the King of Giants, the Primordial Monarch, the King of Snowfolk, the Frost Monarch, the King of Demonic Spirits, the Transfiguration Monarch, and the King of Dragons, the Destruction Monarch. These monarchs possessed unimaginable strength. Beru continues, explaining that when 8 monarchs invaded Earth, they all fell to Suho's father. Suho is amazed to learn about his father's feats. The sword reveals its hatred for the Shadow Monarch, Suho's father, who killed the Fang Monarch. It challenges Suho, claiming it would kill him if it had all its strength. Suho shares his perspective that both his father and Raken were protecting their territories. He proposes a deal. If the sword helps him, he will help protect the sanctuary from the Itarims. Though it feels odd for Shadow and Fang to fight together, Suho offers a compelling deal. Outside the dungeon, a group sits with Instructor Lim for details about the incident. He hopes Suho's achievements will earn him better treatment, despite being an E-rank. That evening, an article goes viral about an E-rank hunter bravely venturing into a dungeon alone to save higher-ranked strikers. Headlines highlight the hero within an E-rank, with many testimonies from those he saved. Keen Observer plans to gather more porters to cover the story in greater detail. Lee Young-ho of the Black Tortoise Guild's 2nd Department found Suho to be a thrilling prospect for their team. He shared Suho's profile with his colleagues, who were astounded by the news of Suho soloing a dungeon. Young-ho immediately ordered them to contact Suho. After some time, Young-ho inquired if Suho had responded. He assumed a novice like Suho would be thrilled by an invitation from such a prestigious guild. To his shock, Suho had declined. Young-ho couldn't believe an E-rank hunter would refuse an offer from their powerful guild. He asked to double-check for errors, but it was true. Suho wasn't interested in joining any guild. Young-ho was baffled. How could a hunter refuse guild membership? Did Suho think he was an S-rank elite? However, his assistant remained hopeful. Clearing dungeons alone was nearly impossible, and eventually Suho would realize he needed their guild. Meanwhile, Suho continued to turn down numerous guild offers. Every time he returned from a dungeon, the offers flooded in. Beru noted that many needed Suho's strength, but the reality was different. The guilds only wanted Suho as a collector or porter. Joining a guild would hinder his progress, making it pointless. After handling the annoying messages, Suho decided to talk to Fang of Raken in the dungeon. He mentioned that Fang and Shadow were aligned. Fang found this surprising, but saw potential for future alliance rather than enmity. Fang had one condition. Suho needed to take him to another sanctuary of the Fang monarch. At home, Suho asked Fang if he knew the way. Fang replied that he could locate the Fang monarch's sanctuary regardless of distance, but the gate had disappeared, likely due to a dungeon rupture. This meant the area had become a field-type dungeon, where monsters broke out of a breached gate. Suho, now clear on his next steps, informed his uncle not to worry and set off. He arrived at the protected area, confirmed by Fang as the right place, and noticed a sign indicating it was restricted to the Hyena Guild members. This was problematic as trespassing was illegal, and the Hyena Guild was mostly criminals. Beru disliked the idea and suggested focusing on leveling up instead. But Suho disagreed. When Beru questioned his plan, Suho eagerly revealed he was preparing to enter the area. He wasn't worried about the Hyena Guild, confident that they wouldn't catch him without proof. Beru noted Suho's reckless resemblance to his father. After successfully sneaking in, Suho wondered if field-type dungeons were always so foggy. Beru explained that the fog was magical power from another dimension, causing ruptures and linking the sacred ground of Fang of Raken to Earth. Suho needed to wait for something strong to appear, a time he intended to use for leveling up with the local monsters. Daggerclaw Vriga and Black Shadow Rajan, whose orange names promised a challenge. Fang of Raken was eager to show his strength. Suho planned to fight using basic attacks enhanced with Ruler's power, various weapons for unpredictability, and the Storm Slash skill to decimate monsters. Additionally, he would use Shadow Extraction to gain more equipment, making him even stronger. Beru was awed by Suho, while Fang of Raken pondered Suho's inherited power from the Shadow Monarch. The more opponents Suho faced and the longer the battle, the stronger he became, ensuring no one could defeat him. After a while, Suho was facing his new undead army. Thanks to his level up, his intelligence level had also risen. Now the number of summoned creatures had increased to 5, but according to Beru, this was still negligible compared to the old monarch. After a while, Suho managed to get to the right place. At the place where the gate leading to the sanctuary should have been, there was a base. Even at this late hour, there were many people there. Suho thought it was strange because the best time to fight monsters was during the day. Suddenly, a car came to the base and everything became clear. Our hero was shocked by what he saw. Bound and battered people started coming out of the car who had clearly not been brought here voluntarily. The members of the Hyenas Guild were really scum. Suho found it hard to believe that such terrible things could still happen in the civilized world. Realizing how this scene might make our hero feel, Beru advised him not to get into a fight. After all, if they were caught trespassing on private property, his status as a hunter would be in danger. But as it turned out, Suho no longer hurt him. He rushed towards the bandits without a second thought. Beru could understand his feelings. Suho's father was a police officer, and his grandfather was a legendary firefighter who had saved hundreds of lives. Suho had grown up under their influence since childhood, and now he just couldn't stay away when he saw injustice. Sensing something, the man turned around to check it out, and the first thing he saw was our boy's leg. It was time for justice to be served. His blatant act first think later approach managed to stop the Hyena Guild member from approaching the bound lady with ill intentions. Suho's feet were planted deeply into the face of the perv, leaving a shoe print on the bastard's cheek. Beru the sword and the other supporting cast were left hiding in the foliage, while the young monarch wreaked havoc. The bastards of the Hyena Guild were caught off guard. They were not expecting any intrusion into their operation, and now there's a young man going crazy on them. Suho's initial strike was supremely effective. The momentum of his fist was top-notch, knocking the perv down to the ground, eating dirt and gravel. The young monarch slowly turned his head to assess the situation. His gaze was as cold as ice. Then came the realization that he had just blown his cover, effectively leaving himself exposed in the middle of a privately owned territory controlled by brutal criminals. His act first, think later approach only works if you have the power to back it up. These hyena bastards could easily turn the story against him, as illegal trespass on another guild's territory is a massive crime. Grateful for his quick thinking, Suho came up with a simple solution to avoid trouble. Using his ability to manipulate shadows, he created a mask to hide his identity. With his face concealed, Suho confronted the Hyena Guild about their illegal activities, including kidnapping and endangering people. However, the members of the guild were unfazed by his questions and instead turned the tables, accusing him of trespassing and attacking them. One of the leaders ordered his men to attack Suho, commanding them to tear him apart with blades and magic. Suho, with his natural skills and growing experience, easily dodged their attacks. He had researched the Hyena Guild and knew that most of their members were only D rank. Recognizing that they were not a significant threat, he held back his full strength to avoid causing any fatalities. Despite this, he was powerful enough to knock an enemy away with a single counterattack, sending another flying with the same blow. It was like hitting two birds with one stone. He didn't stop there. Suho launched himself into the air, delivering a mid-air split kick that took out two more attackers simultaneously. Watching from the sidelines, Beru was impressed by Suho's agility and strength. He noted how much Suho had grown, as D-rank awakeners could no longer challenge him. This rapid improvement deeply moved the Shadow Ant. Suho, however, felt that defeating these enemies was almost too easy. At level 16, he had focused most of his attribute points on strength, while keeping the others balanced. After subduing the Hyena Guild members, he tied them up together, creating a little villain sleepover. As he dusted off his hands, Beru complimented him on his clean execution. The kidnapped survivors thanked Suho for freeing them from the guild. When they asked if he was a hunter from the Hunter Association, he gave a vague answer and told them to escape to safety while he cleaned up the area. Fortunately, they still had a vehicle to use for their escape. Curious about the Hyena Guild's motives for kidnapping people, Suho felt his sword reacting. This was the reason they infiltrated the facility in the first place. They sensed something hidden within the lawless grounds of the guild. After some exploration, they found a structure resembling a massive warehouse. Inside, Suho was horrified to see signs of cruel practices, kennels and cages that looked like an inhumane prison. Medical equipment scattered around indicated that people had been held and experimented on here. Empty cages with loose chains told a grim story of the previous captives. In the midst of this horror, Beru sensed a faint but familiar energy. This led them to a cage where a terrified furry animal was cowering. The creature showed clear signs of experimentation and mistreatment. Suho looked at the animal, puzzled by the Hyena Guild's intentions. The sword clarified that the creature wasn't a dog, but a young wolf, and a descendant of the King of Beasts, the Fang Monarch. After being defeated by the Shadow Monarch, the King of Beasts had sent his last descendant away with a guard for protection, hoping another Fang Monarch might emerge from his bloodline. The sword wasn't even hoping for a new Fang Monarch, just wishing for the king's descendants to survive. Suho gently carried the pup out of the cage. Beru sensed the faint energy of the Fang Monarch in the little wolf, whose vitality was so low that it might not survive without help. Whatever Suho decided to do next, Beru was ready to support him. Before they could make a decision, a heavy presence filled the air. The scent of bloodlust entered the warehouse as a beastly figure approached. A gruff, playful voice remarked on the missing guards. Expecting a group of intruders, the voice was surprised to find just one person. Suho quickly put his mask back on, but upon seeing the newcomer, his blood ran cold. The creature wasn't human, but a hyena monster. This beast mocked the Hyena Guild for their incompetence. The sword recognized him as Brokey, who was supposed to protect the Fang Monarch's descendants. Brokey too recognized Raken's Fang, now in blade form. Raken's Fang confronted Brokey, questioning why he had failed to protect the young wolf and allowed it to suffer. Offended by the accusations, Brokey prepared to respond. In the blink of an eye, he closed the gap between himself and Suho. The beast even extended its sharp claws to touch and inspect the human, trying to intimidate him. Brokey accused Suho of touching a pup that belonged to him. Overwhelmed by the tension and the creature's speed, Suho tried to brace himself. The wild hyena charged again, looking even more deranged. Blocking the attack wouldn't be easy. With his slower speed, Suho could only manage a hurried guard. The initial hit didn't strike any vital areas, but the force sent him crashing into concrete walls, reducing them to dust. The impact was so severe that Beru panicked for the young monarch's safety. From a distance, it was clear that a single strike from the hyena caused Avengers-level destruction. Beru found the young monarch under the rubble, surprisingly okay but shaken. Though Suho claimed the attack hurt the most out of all he's endured recently, his head was bleeding heavily and he could hear ringing in his ears. Despite the damage, the system rewarded him by leveling up his endurance skill, increasing his physical resistance from 20% to 40%. Beru mentioned sensing faint traces of familiar energy in the area earlier. Now he realized it was the presence of Itarim and Broki. Hearing that the mysterious Itarim was involved made it personal for Suho. Meanwhile, Broki was retrieving the dying pup, still with a sinister grin. Raken's Fang tried to understand Broki's actions, but the beast seemed utterly insane. Broki explained that he maintained his strength by adopting a survival-of-the-fittest mentality. The weak were at the mercy of the strong. To him, the descendant of the Fang monarch was just a prime source of nutrition. Broki had been regularly consuming the pup's blood to extract the Fang monarch's essence. Hearing Broki's monstrous deeds enraged Raken's Fang, who vowed to kill Broki. But the hyena just laughed, asserting that Raken died because he was weak, while Broki survived because of his strength. He claimed to be the only worthy successor to the Fang monarch. As he boasted, a sneak attack loosened his grip on the pup. Broki reacted quickly, his reflexes and bloodlust intense. But Beru was even faster, rescuing the weak pup and mocking Broki's speed. After securing the pup, Beru swiftly retreated. Suho then called the Fang of Raken to his hand, ready to face the real leader of the Hyena Guild. His synchronization with the blade was impressive. With the hostage safe, it was time to go all out. The Fang's anger towards Broki fueled their fight. With a common enemy, Shadow and Fang could show the world their first alliance. Broki was Suho's first clue to the mystery of his father. This battle-hardened beast, trusted by the Fang monarch, wouldn't give up that clue easily. As Broki's rage erupted with a murderous scream, one of his eyes glowed with a golden light. At the same time, Suho received an emergency quest to hunt the hyena. He had to take down Broki and reach safety. Beru, stuck babysitting from a distance, was nearly in tears. All he could do was watch the fight from a safe spot, ensuring the pup was protected. Speaking of the pup, the chaotic sounds of the battle had woken him up. Even the simple act of opening his eyes was a struggle. The first thing he saw was the young monarch's back, standing proudly against Broki. Shadow and Fang were brushing off their previous injuries, ready to face the beast. Suho fixed his eyes on the hyena, tying a bandana on his forehead to look as cool as possible. It became clear where the Hyena Guild got their name. Those uncreative thieves. But how did a monster create a guild that kidnaps people? Could it be connected to IEM? As Broki emerged from the warehouse, he saw the Hyena Guild members tied up neatly. They were respectfully pleading for Mr. Broki to release them, fear evident in their voices. The lead goon warned Broki that Suho was no ordinary opponent and that they needed to join forces against him. Hearing about more troublesome enemies, Suho prepared to charge in and prevent this alliance. He drew his blade swiftly, but the beast reacted faster, showing its fangs. Its target wasn't Suho, but its own guild members. With one brutal bite, Broki decapitated his men in a single chomp. Blood spattered everywhere as their heads were swallowed. Suho was stunned, not expecting such extreme friendly fire. Broki declared he didn't need humans telling him he needed help. Those who didn't know their place were executed. His law. Realizing how ruthless the monster was, Suho knew such evil couldn't be left free. Broki had to pay for his sins under the blade. Unfortunately, Suho's blade and strength weren't enough to pierce the hyena's tough hands. He gritted his teeth, applying more pressure, but it didn't budge. Anger surged through him. This monster viewed humans as nothing, killing without hesitation. Broki reiterated that the strong determined the weak's right to live. With this belief, he felt he could do whatever he wanted. Lost in his delusion, Broki took whatever he desired. With one powerful claw strike, he sent Suho flying into steel containers. This time, the young monarch was ready to rebound. Against an experienced enemy like Broki, Letting his guard down for a moment could be fatal. Luckily, he dodged the follow-up bite that created a crater on the ground. Brocky was so fast it felt like fighting two enemies at once, constantly shifting positions. Impressively, Suho held his own in this fierce battle. Brocky wasn't a typical opponent. Every move carried destructive force and the cunning of a hungry beast. He seemed to mock his prey with a constant sneer. Then came a claw attack so powerful it sliced the air and anything in its path. Brocky's attack missed, and he searched for Suho, who had a plan in motion. From a blind spot above, Suho used his downward force to enhance a powerful slash, wounding the hyena. Though he made the beast bleed, the cuts were shallow. Brocky laughed, mocking the fang of Rayon as a dull relic of the Fang monarch. Distracted by his taunts, Brocky was vulnerable to a painful stab in the back. Suho had turned the tables but wasn't done yet. He ordered the fang of Raken to spin and carve its way out of the monster's body. As the fang spun, it wondered why the loyal Brocky had changed so drastically. This crazed, hate-filled dog once respected Lord Raken. What caused this transformation remained a mystery. If asked, Brocky would say he once respected Raken, but changed due to a group known by their golden sigil, etched into his left eye. Questioning his principles, Brocky's mind plunged into turmoil, leading to even more aggressive attacks. He swiped his claws furiously, trying to eliminate anyone in his path. His tone grew crazier, claiming he never respected the King of Beasts but had no choice but to yield to Raon's strength. Now awake, he refused to return to a life of forced submission. Demonstrating his resolve, Brocky shattered Raken's fang, breaking it into pieces. Suho made the mistake of moving towards a fallen comrade while the enemy was still around. Brocky made him pay, reminding Suho that in such a brutal fight, survival required undivided focus. The hyena's punch brought a world of pain, making it feel like his bones were being crushed. Any normal person would have passed out from the agony, but Suho found strength in thinking of his father, who had fought gods alone. With Sung Jinwoo handling bigger threats, Suho couldn't let a mere monster defeat him. He called upon the power of shadows, wrapping his fists in a gauntlet of darkness. His punch sent the hyena reeling. This was his moment to stand strong. Beru watched with tense concern, fearing for the young monarch, but Suho seemed to be matching Brocky's intensity. Nearby, Raken's fang lay discarded, its power leaking from the broken blade. The once great family faced possible extinction. Seeing the last descendant, a wounded puppy, struggling to stand, the Fang refused to surrender. It realized what had to be done. On the battlefield, Suho continued to clash with the hyena monster. Though outmatched in size and power, his shadow armament kept him in the fight. The sword and the descendant watched, inspired by Suho's spirit. Raken's fang decided to give its remaining power to the bloodline's successor, healing and strengthening it. The power of Raken's will grew, enveloping the air. Brocky moved unpredictably, and Suho, despite his growing battle sense, could only block. Exhausted with just 21 GP left, he knew another hit would be fatal. Yet he stood up, fists raised, determined to fight. Brocky, sensing Suho's determination, praised him, but prepared for a final attack. As Brocky lunged, fangs aimed at Suho, another entity intervened. A wolf wrapped in a golden aura, its jaws piercing Brocky's tough hide. Suho, on the brink of defeat, was saved by this unexpected ally. The golden wolf, with a mark on its forehead, inflicted serious wounds on Brocky. After the attack, the wolf stood beside Suho, its eyes filled with rage. Suho's system informed him that the Fang's successor respected his fighting spirit and requested to join his party. The injured puppy had transformed into a powerful beast, seeking an alliance with Suho.